Allow me to recognize the presence of the President and the CEO, Global Center of Adaptation, and Chancellor of the University of Nairobi, Professor Patrick Wakechin, Your Excellency, the Governor of Homa Bay, Her Excellency Gladys Wanga, the Vice President for Power, Energy, Climate, and Green Growth, African Development Bank, Dr. Kevin Kariuki, the ambassadors present here from the various countries, of course, Anud from the French ambassador, the Deputy Head of Mission, Rural Norwegian Embassy. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Allow me to pass the apologies of my Cabinet Secretary, who was supposed to be delivering this speech. In fact, the speech that I'm going to read is for my Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Aden Duale. Briefly, they had previous engagements with the CEO, and he had to leave for other engagements with His Excellency the President. You are aware, last week the President launched the Climate Works program, which is supposed to be benefiting over 20,000 young people in Nairobi. And therefore, the team leader for that program is our CS in charge of environment, climate change, and forestry. And they are working on the modalities on how that will be rolled out in Nairobi. And I presume the young people from Nairobi will be a big beneficiary to that program, and therefore receive his apologies in that regard. Allow me also to indicate that today is World Ozone Day, and the topic is about advancing climate action. So from here also, we are the host of the event again, Patrick. We have a series of events as a ministry, and we'll be hosting the world celebrations at the Kenya Meteorological Department. Thank you so much for being here. So allow me to just concentrate on the remarks from my Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Aden Duale, but to just mention that Governor Wanga, we really appreciate, personally, you are a trailblazer in the local government. I must admit I was a county executive member in Nakuru, you are aware, and therefore looking at what you are doing in the county at the local institution, where I have always mentioned, and my guys at the national government know that I am pro-devolution. I have never changed. I'm a pro-devolution, and therefore where climate action happens is at the county governments at the local level. So you are doing a great job. That's why we are working closely with the National Treasury. I know part of the financing from the FDP, the FLOCA is critical, and that is what the President is focusing. So climate action and the issues of adaptation, building climate resilience will always be achieved through the local community. So we honor you and we thank you. And of course, our partnership with GCA. Patrick, you know where we are going on the office. I can assure you, and you had the commitments from my minister, that the Africa office will be established in Kenya, Nairobi, for the Africa region. So allow me to mention that it is an honor to join you today at this 4th Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program, AAAP Partnership Forum. I extend my deepest gratitude to the Global Center on Adaptation, GCA, the African Development Bank, and the African Union for their leadership and commitment for driving climate adaptation action across the continent. This forum presents an opportunity not only to reflect on the progress we have made, but also to redouble our efforts as we confront the escalating climate crisis. Africa is undoubtedly one of the most vulnerable regions in the world to climate change. The impacts of prolonged droughts, unpredictable and intensified rainfall, and rising temperatures are having profound and destabilizing effects on our communities, economies, and ecosystems. Dr. Patrick and Governor Wanga have elaborated the effects of this, and I don't want to take my time on the same, but climate change is real and it's a crisis, especially on the global south. For instance, the World Food Programme reported that the prolonged drought in the Horn of Africa between 2019 and 2023 left up to almost 223 million people acutely food insecure and 5.1 million children acutely malnourished. And another estimated 2.7 million people were displaced by drought in the region, not to mention the floods. Here in Kenya, we faced the most severe and longest drought in 40 years in the same period, causing massive displacement of estimated 508,000 people, while about 4.4 million people, which is 27% of the ASAL population, while facing high levels of acute food insecurity. The sixth assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change indicates that with a high confidence that climate change will increasingly put pressure on food production, access, and especially in vulnerable regions, undermining food security and nutrition. The sub-Saharan Africa is particularly identified as one of the most global hotspots of high human vulnerability due to poverty, limited access to basic services and resources, violent conflicts, and high levels of climate-sensitive livelihoods like pastoralists, fishing communities, and smallholder farms. I want to commend the AAAP for recognizing these challenges and designing programs on climate-smart digital technologies for agriculture and food security. This will scale up access to climate-smart digital technologies and financial services informed by data to support food security and enhance landscape restoration efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenya, like many other African nations, has taken bold steps to address the growing threat of climate change. Our national adaptation plan and our updated nationally determined contributions, NDCs, clearly outline our prioritization of and commitment to adaptation. However, we must face the hard truth that financing for adaptation is woefully inadequate across the continent. And I think, Patrick, you will really emphasize on that point. That the 2022 Africa Adaptation Gap Report estimates that Sub-Saharan Africa needs an average of up to 36 billion per year by 2030 to meet adaptation needs, while the national adaptation finance flows to developing countries are 5 to 10 times below estimated needs, and the gap is widening. The immense gap underscores the urgency of mobilizing and scaling up the adaptation finance, particularly for vulnerable nations like those in Africa, which contribute only about 4% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, but bear the brunt of the impacts of climate change. This is where African Adaptation Acceleration Program, AAAP, becomes indispensable. The program objectives of scaling adaptation finance in Africa seeks to climate-proof up to $25 billion of investments by 2025 is highly commendable. By focusing on the key pillars of African economies, climate-smart agriculture, resilient infrastructure, nature-based solutions, and climate adaptation jobs, the program embodies the spirit of African leadership and partnership in addressing the climate crisis head-on. I wish to acknowledge and appreciate that Kenya has been a direct beneficiary of GCA's investment through the AAAP. GCA has committed over 3 million euros to programs of the African Development Bank, World Bank, IFAD, targeted at food security, infrastructure, and nature-based solutions and adaptation jobs in Kenya. The upstream investments have already begun to unlock substantial downstream funding, which will significantly impact on the implementation of the Kenya's $40 billion National Adaptation Plan. Ladies and gentlemen, our approach to climate adaptation in Kenya is grounded in local expertise and collaboration. GCA's strategy has rightly drawn on Kenyan solutions and institutions, including our vibrant private sector, county governments, and leading institutions of higher learning, such as the University of Nairobi. These collaborations highlights a crucial lesson that adaptation strategies must be rooted in local context and must leverage on local innovation to be truly effective. Our private sector is not only a critical driver of economic growth, but also a vital partner in ensuring that the investments in adaptation are sustainable and scalable. In addition, I want to emphasize the importance of youth involvement in climate adaptation. Africa's young people are not just the leaders of tomorrow, they are the innovators and the change makers of today. The African Youth Adaptation Solutions Challenge, Youth Adapt, is an inspiring initiative that supports youth-led enterprises working on climate adaptation solutions. I'm particularly proud to note that out of the more than 40 winners announced so far, 8 have come from Kenya. This demonstrates the ingenuity and leadership of our young people in tackling climate challenges head-on. They are an integral part of our solution, and we must continue to support and empower them in their efforts. Looking ahead, Kenya remains fully committed to the African Adaptation Acceleration Program. This partnership forum provides a valuable platform for us to chart the course of the next phase of the program, ensuring that critical adaptation outcomes are delivered at larger scale and with greater speed. The upcoming advocacy milestones, such as the Leaders' Dialogue on doubling down on climate adaptation action at the United Nations General Assembly, UNCA, and COP29 are crucial opportunities for us to elevate our voices and push for the support and resources necessary to meet Africa's adaptation needs. Ladies and gentlemen, while the challenges are so great, so too are the opportunities. Climate adaptation is not just about responding to climate impacts, it is about building a resilient future, one where African countries can thrive in the face of climate change. To achieve this, programs like the AAAP must be supported at scale with increased financial flows, technical expertise, and political will. Through initiatives like the AAAP, we have the tools to transform Africa's adaptation efforts, creating a future that is both resilient and sustainable. As I conclude, I reaffirm the full support of the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change, and Forestry to the full realization of the objectives of the African Adaptation Acceleration